A young woman was outraged by her husband's double standards when he demanded buying an expensive gift for his mother. "You didn't even give my mother a single card, and I'm supposed to get yours a refrigerator? Have you lost your mind?" She couldn't hold back. Instead of listening, her husband flared up in anger. "Shut up. My mother raised me on her own." But this family conflict took an unexpected turn. Ashley sat in the kitchen of their tiny one-bedroom apartment, which she and Dave had been renting for 3 years, counting the household budget once again. The numbers in the notebook looked merciless. Her husband's salary, $4,000, hers, $3,000. Minus rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, $600 remained each month. It was exactly this meager $600 that was supposed to become the down payment for their own home. 3, maybe 4 more years, and we'll have enough, she whispered, calculating in her head. Maybe even sooner if Richard gets a promotion. Through the thin wall, the sounds of a TV turning on could be heard. The neighbors were once again having their evening TV marathon at full volume. Ashley frowned and closed the window. The street smelled of exhaust fumes and the noise of the highway. How she longed for a place of her own, small, but hers, where she could hang family photos, buy a proper sofa instead of this fold-out relic from Soviet times, where the springs could be felt through the thin mattress. Richard came home at 6:30, tired and slightly disheveled. "Hi, sunshine," he kissed his wife on the cheek and immediately headed to the fridge. "What's for dinner?" "Pasta with sausages and a vegetable salad," Ashley said, putting the notebook with the calculations aside. "How was work?" "Same as usual." Richard caused another scene over the reports. "And you?" Richard looked drained. The construction company job was sucking the life out of him, but the pay was decent, and that was what mattered. Ashley knew it wasn't the time to change jobs or look for something better. They had to save, and save some more. By the way, Richard sat down at the table. Mom called. Complaining about the fridge again. Ashley felt something unpleasant tighten in her chest. Here we go. A month ago, Rebecca suddenly decided that her fridge was completely old and about to fall apart, even though it was only about 10 years old, no more. A regular white refrigerator that had been cooling and freezing food reliably all these years. "And what did she say?" Ashley asked cautiously. "Well, the shelf is cracked, the door doesn't close properly, she wanted us to look at it over the weekend." Richard Ashley sat opposite her husband. "Have you noticed that Mom started saying this right after we mentioned saving for an apartment?" Richard lifted his eyes from his plate. There was something fleeting in them, understanding, irritation, a defensive reaction. "Ashley, don't make things up. Her fridge really is old. 10 years isn't old. My parents have one the same age, and nothing. Okay, let's not talk about this now. I'm tired." But Ashley couldn't let it go. On Saturday, they went to visit Rebecca, and the performance began. Her mother-in-law's apartment was in a nice area, in a building from the 90s. A 2-room flat with high ceilings, parquet floors, and French windows. Rebecca worked as an accountant for a large company and earned a pretty decent salary, yet she constantly complained about lack of money and tried to shift her expenses onto her son. "Dave, come in, come in." Her mother-in-law greeted them in a housecoat, though her hair was neatly styled, and a pained half-smile played on her lips. "Ashley, you're here too?" "Good." Ashley had long learned to distinguish Rebecca's intonations. "And you're here, Mint. I didn't invite you, but since you came, you'll witness my suffering. Dave, remember I asked you to check the fridge? It's gotten really bad." And the show began. Rebecca led her son to the fridge, opened the door, and began demonstrating the horrible defects. The crack in the plastic shelf was thin, barely noticeable. The door gasket had darkened slightly over time. The freezer compartment was covered with a thin layer of frost. See, Dave, her mother-in-law whispered tragically, as if she were announcing a terminal diagnosis. The shelf is cracked, food could fall, and the door doesn't close properly. It uses too much electricity and freezes poorly. The meat has already thawed twice. Ashley stood aside, watching this theater unfold. The fridge was working perfectly, humming quietly. Inside, it was clean and cold. The shelf was indeed cracked, but it didn't affect its functionality. The door closed normally. Ashley had checked it herself. And as for the meat, her mother-in-law was clearly exaggerating. Everything in the freezer was properly frozen. "Mom, these are just minor things," Richard said uncertainly. "We can tape the shelf and wipe the gasket." "Dave." Rebecca threw up her hands. "Tape it? That's unsanitary. And the gasket isn't the same anymore, air passes through it. No, this fridge is living its last days." She closed the door and let out a heavy sigh, leaning against the fridge as if saying goodbye to a dying friend. "I'm even afraid to imagine what will happen when it finally breaks. All the food will spoil, we'll have to throw it out and a new fridge." She sighed again, even more dramatically. "Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? On my pension?" "Mom, you still work," Ashley interjected. Rebecca shot her daughter-in-law a disapproving glance. "Yes, I work, but for what?" "For utilities, medicine, groceries." "What's left?" "Pennies." Ashley bit her tongue. Her mother-in-law earned nearly $6,000, more than her son, and lived alone, with no dependents. But arguing was pointless. Rebecca always found a way to present herself as poor and wronged by fate. For the next half hour, the conversation kept returning to the ill-fated fridge. Her mother-in-law described how she was afraid to open the freezer. What if everything had thawed? How worried she was about the food, how ashamed she felt in front of the neighbors for having such old appliances. "Tiffany has a brand new fridge, beautiful, silver. She says it's very convenient and economical. Sometimes I wonder, will I even live to have one like that?" Richard sat tensely, avoiding looking at his wife. Ashley could see how nervous he was, torn by contradictions. On one side was his mother, who had cared for him all his life and now asked for help. On the other, family plans, penny by penny savings, the dream of their own home. On the way home, in the minibus, Ashley couldn't hold back. "Richard, don't you understand what's happening?" "What do you mean?" "About the fridge. She's deliberately putting on this whole show. She wants us to buy her a new one." Richard stared out the window. "Ashley, maybe she's really worried?" "The fridge isn't exactly new, but it works. You saw for yourself. And besides, she has money. If she really needs a new one, she can buy it herself." "She's my mother," Richard said quietly. "And I'm your wife. And we have plans too. Or are we going to rent this dump forever?" Richard remained silent, but Ashley could see it on his face. He was torn between recognizing his wife's point and the habit of yielding to his mother's desires. The following days brought new installments of fridge drama. Rebecca called every day, finding new reasons to worry. The fridge made a strange noise, the shelf cracked further, the temperature was wrong. "Dave, I'm even afraid to buy milk. What if it spoils?" she complained into the phone. Ashley listened to these calls, feeling her anger rise. She was especially frustrated that Richard was giving in to these manipulations. He grew thoughtful, distracted. Several times, she caught him browsing fridge prices online. "Are you seriously thinking of buying one?" Ashley asked one evening, seeing a page open with home appliance listings. "I'm just checking the prices," Richard said unconvincingly. $5,000, Ashley pointed at the screen. "Do you see the price? That's 2 months of our savings." I'm just. "What, Richard? We dream about our own apartment, we save every cent. I gave up new boots, You go to work in a 5-year-old jacket. And now your mother decides to upgrade her appliances at our expense. Don't shout, Richard said wearily. I'm not buying anything. Not yet. Not yet sounded like a sentence. Ashley knew that sooner or later Richard would give in. Rebecca would keep pressing, complaining, staging scenes until her son bought her a new fridge. And that same evening, her mother-in-law called again. Dave, my fridge is really bad now. I opened the freezer, and sobs were audible in her voice. Everything's thawed, meat, fish, everything's ruined. What am I supposed to do? Ashley took the phone from her husband's hands. Rebecca, did you make sure the door was properly closed? Could something have been in the way? Silence. Then a dissatisfied reply. Of course I closed it. Do you think I don't know how to use a fridge? Then that's strange, it was fine yesterday. Ashley, give the phone back to Dave. I need to speak with my son. And it began again, complaints, sighs, hints that good children take care of their parents. I don't know what I'll do if the fridge finally breaks, groaned her mother-in-law. Richard listened, frowned, muttered something reassuring, while Ashley sat beside him thinking about how unfair the world was. When her own mother's washing machine broke, she and Dave could only help with advice and a couple $100. No money, her husband had said then. And now his mother, despite her decent salary, was claiming their modest savings. Ashley remembered her mother's last birthday. They had given a modest bouquet of chrysanthemums for $10. Her mother had been pleased and grateful, but Ashley had felt embarrassed by such a meager gift. And when her mother had shyly hinted that she would like a new phone, the old one barely worked, Richard had suddenly become distracted and hurriedly changed the subject. It's not customary to give expensive gifts to relatives, he had said at home. Every cent counts for us. And now his own mother demanded a $5,000 fridge. And Richard was seriously considering it. On the eve of Rebecca's birthday, the fridge campaign reached its peak. Her mother-in-law called twice a day, reporting new malfunctions each time. Ashley no longer believed a single word, but Richard grew increasingly nervous and pensive. Maybe we should really help Mom? He said one evening, getting into bed. Help how? Ashley put her book aside. Your mother earns more than you. Why can't she buy the fridge herself? Well, she has expenses. What expenses? Richard, you're an adult man. Stop deceiving yourself. She just doesn't want to spend her money when she can spend ours. Richard stayed silent, but Ashley felt he was almost ready to give in. And tomorrow, at the birthday, Rebecca would strike the decisive blow. Falling asleep, Ashley thought about how much could change tomorrow. She didn't yet know if she would have the strength to fight for this shared future against her mother-in-law's manipulations. In the morning, on Rebecca's birthday, Ashley woke with a heavy foreboding. Richard was bustling in the kitchen, preparing the gifts, a beautiful scarf and a set of fine tea they had chosen a week ago. Back then, it had seemed enough. Now Ashley realized her mother-in-law expected a completely different gift. Richard, she said, pouring coffee, let's agree on this right away. No matter what Mom says about the fridge today, we are not buying it. Agreed? Richard looked up from the gift wrapping. Annoyance flickered in his eyes. Ashley, why are you setting yourself up for conflict in advance? Maybe she won't even talk about it. She will, Ashley snorted. Want to bet? She'll bring up the fridge within the first half hour. I don't want to bet. I just want to have a normal birthday for Mom. On the way to her mother-in-law's, they picked up a cake, beautiful, decorated with cream roses, which had cost a considerable amount. Ashley once again thought about how they could have bought a week's worth of groceries with that money, but she stayed silent. Her mother-in-law's birthday was no time to save. Rebecca greeted them in a new dark blue dress, her hair neatly styled and light makeup applied. She looked wonderful. For 57, she could easily outshine many 40-year-olds. Dave, Ashley. She kissed him on the cheeks, but Ashley noticed the quick, assessing glance Rebecca cast at her. Come in, I've already prepared everything. The table was lavishly set, Olivier salad, herring under a fur coat, sliced sausages and cheeses, roasted chicken, homemade pickles. In the center stood a bouquet of white roses, probably from colleagues or friends. Rebecca knew how to create an atmosphere of care and attention around her. Mom, happy birthday. Richard hugged his mother and handed over the gifts. This is from us. Rebecca unwrapped the package, smiled, thanked them, but a flicker of disappointment crossed her eyes. A scarf and tea looked pleasant, but not at all what she had been expecting. Thank you, dears, she said, setting the gifts aside. Very lovely. Sit at the table. I'll put the tea on. Ashley mentally started a timer. 15 minutes. That's how long it would take her mother-in-law to move on to the main topic. You know, children, Rebecca began, pouring tea into the cups. I had such a scare this morning. I got up, wanted to get some milk. I opened the fridge, and it's not working. What do you mean, not working? Richard asked, alarmed, looking up. Well, it's not humming, the light's off. I thought, that's it, we're done for. Then it turned out a fuse had blown, but what a sign. Her mother-in-law pressed a hand to her chest. Can you imagine what would have happened if it had broken down today, on my birthday? The whole table would have gone bad. Ashley glanced at her husband. Richard was listening intently, looking concerned. Mom, well, a blown fuse isn't so bad, he said. The main thing is the fridge works. Works, Rebecca sighed. For now. But how long, Dave? You saw yourself what state it's in. The shelf is cracked, the door doesn't close properly, it freezes poorly. And it began. The same complaints, the same size, but now with new details. Apparently, the fridge didn't just work poorly, it also made a terrible noise at night and ate electricity like crazy. And neighbor Tiffany has already asked twice if I'm planning to replace it. Rebecca continued. And yesterday I went to the store, I looked at other fridges, so beautiful, so modern. The salesman said, the new models are very energy efficient, consume little electricity. And the size, exactly like yours, will fit perfectly in your niche. Ashley ate her salad in silence, observing the unfolding drama. Rebecca was clearly prepared for this conversation. There were no accidental words in her speech. Every sentence aimed to convince her son of the necessity of buying a new fridge. And how much does such a fridge cost? Richard asked. And Ashley realized he had taken the bait. Well, different prices. Her mother-in-law pretended this question wasn't crucial to her. There are cheaper ones, there are more expensive ones. I saw one, very good. Bosch, a German brand. Reliable equipment, they say it lasts for decades. How much does it cost? Richard repeated. Rebecca hesitated for a second, then said decisively, 5,000. Yes, expensive, of course, but what quality? Efficient, beautiful, and it will last a long time. Ashley put down her fork. So her mother-in-law had already chosen a specific model. And not just chosen, she had studied all the specs, learned the price, and probably even talked to the sellers about delivery and installation. 5,000, Richard muttered. That's quite a lot. A lot, of course, his mother agreed. Especially for me. Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? But what can you do if the old one is really bad? Rebecca sighed. I'll probably have to take it on credit. Although at my age, taking out a loan is scary, what if I don't manage to pay it off? The last phrase sounded particularly plaintive. Ashley saw Dave's face soften. He always panicked when his mother started talking about age and mortality. "Mom, don't say that," he said. "You're still young. Really young." His mother waved her hand. "Retirement soon." "And debts?" "No, better to struggle with the old fridge." Ashley couldn't hold back. "Rebecca, why not go for a simpler model? There are good refrigerators for 2 or 3,000. Her mother-in-law looked at her daughter-in-law with mild irritation. "Ashley, cheap fridges break quickly. Why buy something you'll have to throw away in 2 years? Better to spend once and have it for many years." "But $5,000, Ashley began. Dave, her mother-in-law, turned to her son, ignoring her daughter-in-law. "You understand that I'm not being fussy. I really need a new fridge. And if I'm buying one, it has to be a good one." Richard sat, staring at his plate. Ashley saw him struggle, searching for a way out of the situation. And then he looked up and said uncertainly, "Mom, we will think about it. Maybe we'll figure something out." "You'll think about it?" Her mother-in-law perked up. "Dave, are you serious?" "Well, yes, we'll think." Richard glanced at his wife. "Right, Ashley?" Ashley felt a surge of anger inside. He hadn't even asked her opinion. He just promised his mother he'd think about buying a $5,000 fridge. About their savings, about their plans for the apartment. "Richard," she said quietly but clearly, "we talked about this at home. Ashley, we're just going to think." He avoided looking at her. "We're not making a final decision." Of course," Rebecca chimed in. "Think about it, discuss it. I'm not rushing anyone. It's just, you understand, I worry every day. What if it finally breaks, and all the food goes bad?" Ashley leaned back in her chair. Memories began surfacing, unpleasant but revealing. Her mother's birthday 3 months ago. A modest apartment in an old building where her mother lived alone after her father passed away. Ashley wanted to buy her mother a nice gift, a new phone or at least a pretty dress. But Richard had been adamant. "There's no money, we're saving for the apartment. Let's get flowers and a cake." "That's enough." Her mother greeted them warmly, thanked them for the modest bouquet of chrysanthemums, and served homemade dumplings. Over tea, she timidly showed her old phone, a cracked screen, battery lasting only a few hours. "Maybe I should get a new one," her mother said. "This one is really bad. I'm afraid I won't be able to make a call in an emergency." Richard suddenly began studying the pattern on the tablecloth very carefully. "Mom," Ashley said then, "how much does a decent phone cost?" "Not too much, 1,000. But I don't have extra money right now. Utilities went up, medicine is expensive." Ashley looked at her husband. Richard was silent, pretending not to hear the conversation. "Richard," she said quietly, "maybe we could help Mom?" "Ashley, every cent counts," he replied. "We're saving for the apartment. And besides, it's not customary to give expensive gifts to relatives. It could make them uncomfortable." Her mother hurriedly agreed that it wasn't worth spending, that the old phone would still work. But Ashley saw the disappointment in her eyes. And most importantly, she saw her husband's hypocrisy. Not customary to give expensive gifts to relatives. And now his own mother is asking for a $5,000 fridge. "Richard will think about it." "Rebecca," Ashley said, trying to keep her tone calm. "Do you remember my mother's birthday, when she talked about the phone?" Her mother-in-law tensed. She remembered that conversation perfectly. Ashley had told Dave about it later, in her presence. "I think so," Rebecca replied cautiously. "Then Richard said we didn't have extra money because we were saving for the apartment. And that it's not customary to give expensive gifts. And the phone cost only $700. An awkward silence fell. Richard blushed and stared at his plate. Rebecca pressed her lips together. "Ashley," she said coldly, "situations are different. A phone is a luxury, but a fridge is a necessity. You can't live without it. But you have a fridge. A working fridge. And I have a wreck that's about to break. Her mother-in-law's voice rose. And I don't understand why you're against helping an elderly person. I'm not against helping, Ashley tried to speak evenly. I'm against double standards. Why can't my mother expect help, but you can? Because I'm Dave's mother. Rebecca blurted out. And if my son doesn't help me, who will? And if my mother can't make a call in an emergency because her phone is broken, who will help her? Ashley shot back. Richard jerked his head up. Ashley, that's enough, he said sharply. Don't make a scene on Mom's birthday. I'm not making a scene. I'm just reminding you that we have plans for this money. Mom, Richard turned to his mother, we really will think about it. We'll definitely figure something out. Maybe not immediately, but... Dave. Rebecca beamed. I knew you wouldn't leave me in the lurch. You understand, I just have nowhere else to turn. Ashley watched the scene, feeling her indignation boil inside. Her mother-in-law was already celebrating victory. Richard had effectively agreed to the purchase, and her opinion didn't matter to anyone. And you know, Dave, her mother-in-law continued, emboldened, I even consulted the salesperson. He said delivery and installation can be arranged, and they'll take away the old fridge for free. Very convenient. Mom, you already spoke with the salesperson? Richard asked in surprise. Yes, just inquired, her mother-in-law said, slightly embarrassed. Just in case. Was that not allowed? Ashley smirked. So Rebecca had not only chosen the model but also organized everything. Now all that was left was to get the money from her son. Mom, Richard said, let's not rush. We need to think it through, calculate everything. Of course, son, of course. Just don't think too long. The fridge could finally break at any moment. The rest of the evening passed in a tense atmosphere. Rebecca was pleased and barely tried to hide it. Richard looked thoughtful and avoided looking at his wife, while Ashley sat in silence, realizing that something had changed in their relationship that day. When they were leaving, her mother-in-law hugged her son tightly. Thank you, Dave, for being such a good son, she said. Not all children care for their parents the way you do. When saying goodbye to Ashley, she was deliberately cold. Goodbye, Ashley. I hope you understand that sometimes family duties are more important than personal plans. On the way home, they rode in silence. Only when they stepped off the minibus did Ashley speak. Richard, do you understand what just happened? What happened? He walked without looking at her. You promised your mother our savings. The money we're putting aside for the apartment. I didn't promise anything. I said I'd think about it. Think about it in your version means buy it. I know you. Richard stopped. Ashley, she's my mother. My only mother. And if she really needs help, she needs help. Ashley turned to him. She earns $6,000. She has money for a new fridge. But why spend hours when she can spend hers? Don't you get it? I understand perfectly. I understand that I'm a stranger to your mother, that my parents aren't relatives to you, and that our plans can be sacrificed for Mom's whims. That's not a whim, Richard raised his voice. The fridge really is old. 10 years isn't old. And it works. And most importantly, Richard, the most important thing is that you didn't even consult me. You just promised your mother you'd think about buying it. About our money. They reached home in complete silence. Ashley realized that tomorrow or the day after, Richard would announce that they were buying his mother a fridge, and their dream of owning their own apartment would be delayed by several months. And Rebecca would get her $5,000 fridge, confident that she could control the life of her son and his family. The next 3 days passed in oppressive silence. Richard withdrew into himself, spending evenings at the computer, studying fridge specifications and comparing prices. Ashley saw how he struggled, trying to find a compromise between his mother's wishes and common sense. But she also saw which way the scales were tipping. "Listen," he said on Wednesday evening without looking away from the screen. "What if we buy Mom a cheaper fridge? Look, here's a good model for $1,300. "Richard," Ashley set the book aside. "Your mom wants a specific fridge for $5,000. Do you think she'll agree to a replacement?" "Well, she might, if we explain. She won't agree. And you know it." Richard sighed and closed his laptop. "Ashley, what am I supposed to do? She's alone. She really needs help." "She needs our money," Ashley said harshly. "Not help, exactly, but money. She doesn't want to spend her own." "You think too harshly of her. And you think too naively." On Thursday, Rebecca called with exciting news. Her fridge had completely broken. Well, more precisely, it stopped freezing. "Dave." Her mother-in-law's voice trembled with excitement. "Can you imagine what happened? I opened the freezer this morning, and everything had thawed. Meat, fish, ice cream, it's all spoiled. Had to throw it all away. Such money wasted." Ashley gave her husband a skeptical glance. Very convenient timing for a breakdown, right before their son's supposed decision to buy a new fridge. "Mom, the fridge doesn't work at all?" Richard asked. "It still cools a little, but the freezer is dead." "And what's the point without a freezer?" "Dave, now I'm even afraid to buy groceries. What if they go bad? Mom, maybe we could call a repairman? Maybe it can be fixed?" "Dave," there was hurt in her voice. "We've already talked about this. This fridge is old, fixing it is pointless. Better to just buy a new one." "Okay, Mom, I understand. We decided to help you." Ashley jerked her head up. "We decided? When did this we decide? Dave, right?" Her mother-in-law didn't hide her joy. "You're going to buy me a fridge? We'll buy the one you picked. For $5,000. Yes, that one." "Oh, Dave, thank you. You're such a good boy. I'm so happy, so grateful. When will we go buy it?" "Probably this weekend. I need to go to the bank to withdraw the money." Ashley stood and went out onto the balcony. Her hands trembled with rage. He had made the decision without her. Just took it upon himself to spend their joint savings on his mother's whim. Half an hour later, the conversation ended. Richard found his wife on the balcony. "Ashley," he said in a guilty tone. "What else could I do? Her fridge broke." "Very conveniently broke," Ashley replied without turning to him. "What do you mean?" "What I'm saying. Your mom complained about a perfectly working fridge for 3 weeks, and it only broke when you were hesitating about buying a new one. Ashley, do you think she broke it on purpose? I think she's a very smart woman who knows how to get what she wants." Richard was silent. "Fine, let's assume that. But she still needs a fridge, and I can't leave my mother without one. And can I be left without a say in decisions about our money? Ashley, don't be angry. We'll earn more. Just a 2-month delay with the apartment. Just..." Ashley smirked bitterly. "Richard, doesn't it seem strange to you that your mom, earning $6,000 a month, can't buy herself a fridge? And we, with our $60,000 combined and a rented apartment, are supposed to help her. She's my mother. And I'm your wife." Ashley turned to him. "Or am I less important to you than your mom?" Richard was at a loss. "What does that have to do with anything? I love both of you. Then why do you only make decisions in your mom's favor?" "I'm not deciding only for her. You are. Remember the story about the phone for my mom? Back then, you didn't have money, and now suddenly you do." Richard was silent, then quietly said, "All right, Ashley, the decision's been made. Let's not talk about it anymore." "The decision's been made," Ashley repeated. "By you." "Unilaterally." "Fine, Richard. Then bear the responsibility alone as well." On Saturday morning, Richard went to the bank to withdraw the money. Ashley sat in the kitchen with a calculator, going over the family budget. That's really not a small amount. Plus delivery, plus installation. Total, that's about a 3-month delay on the initial payment. And then what? Ashley thought. Then Rebecca's washing machine will break, or her TV, or she'll need a new fur coat, and Richard will decide again for both of them. The phone rang at 12:30. Ashley, her mother-in-law's voice purred. "It's me, Rebecca." "How are you, dear?" "Hello," Ashley replied coldly. "Listen, Dave said you're going to buy the fridge today. I'm so excited, so happy. I wanted to ask, maybe we could look at a microwave too. My old one has gotten really bad." Ashley couldn't believe her ears. "What? A microwave?" "Yes." "Why not?" "Since we're going to the store. It's not expensive, $990. Compared to the fridge, that's nothing." "Rebecca," Ashley tried to speak calmly. "We're only buying the fridge." "Oh, Ashley, what's the big deal?" "Just $990. And I'd have a complete set. A new fridge and a microwave." "No." "What do you mean no?" Her mother-in-law's voice grew hurt. "Ashley, I don't understand your stinginess. Dave agreed to help his mom, and you're against it." "Richard agreed to buy the fridge. There was no talk about a microwave. But since we're going to the store, we're going to buy the fridge. Period." "What a character you have," her mother-in-law said coldly. "Fine, I'll manage with the old microwave for now. Don't want to waste an extra penny on an elderly woman." "Rebecca, you're not elderly, but a fully capable woman with a good salary." "Oh, really?" Her mother-in-law's voice turned icy. "So, in your opinion, children shouldn't help their parents?" "They should, when parents truly need help. And I don't need help." "With my pension?" "You don't have a pension, you have a $6,000 salary. How do you know how much I earn?" Her mother-in-law asked, surprised. "Richard told me." Silence fell. Then Rebecca said quietly, "I see. So, you've been gossiping about me. Talking about my income." "We're not gossiping. We're trying to understand why someone with a decent income can't buy a fridge." "Because I have expenses. Utilities, medicine, groceries. Everyone has expenses. We do too. Plus, rent." Ashley, her mother-in-law's voice grew threatening. "I hope you're not turning Dave against me. I tell Dave the truth, and he draws his own conclusions." "What truth?" "That I'm a bad mother, robbing my son? That you're a woman who's used to living off others." Her mother-in-law gasped. "How dare you? I've worked my whole life. Supported myself my whole life. Then buy yourself a fridge too. I won't let this go." Rebecca hissed. "I'll talk to Dave. He needs to know what kind of wife he has. Talk. I have nothing to hide." Her mother-in-law hung up. Ashley sat on the couch and felt a strange sense of relief. Finally, she had told Rebecca everything she thought. An hour later, Richard returned with an envelope full of money. $6,000, he said, putting the envelope on the table. "Did Mom call?" "She called. Wanted us to buy her a microwave too." Richard frowned. "A microwave?" "She didn't mention that. She just did." "For $990. And what did you say?" "That we're only buying the fridge." Richard nodded. "Right. The fridge is enough for us." At 2 o'clock, they went to Rebecca's. The mother-in-law greeted them joyfully but didn't look at Ashley. Apparently, she decided to pretend the morning conversation never happened. "Dave, son, shall we go get the fridge?" "Let's go, Mom." At the appliance store, Rebecca felt completely at home. She immediately went to the chosen model, began explaining her requirements to the salesperson, and discussed delivery and installation. "Excellent choice," said the salesperson. "Reliable brand, economical, stylish. Will last at least 15 years. Ashley stood aside, watching her mother-in-law revel in her victory. Richard paid in cash and arranged delivery for the next day. "Do you have good microwaves too?" Rebecca suddenly asked. "Mom," Richard warned. "I just want to look." The mother-in-law smiled innocently. "Just curious." The salesperson gladly led them to the microwave display. Rebecca studied the models carefully, asking about features and prices. "This one's good," she said, pointing to an expensive model. "Beautiful and lots of features." $1,499, said the salesperson. "Oh, that's expensive," sighed the mother-in-law. "And this one? 1,200. Also not cheap, Dave." She turned to her son. "What do you think?" Ashley realized the second round was starting. Her mother-in-law would now sigh pitifully, complain about her old microwave, and Richard would reconsider. "Mom," said Richard, "we're only buying the fridge." "Agreed? Of course, son. I'm just looking." But Ashley could see her mother-in-law wasn't giving up. On the way to the register, she brought up the microwave again. "You know, Dave, mine's really bad now. Heats unevenly, makes weird noises. I'm afraid it'll break completely soon." "Mom, enough," Richard said tiredly. "I'm not asking for anything, just saying. But since we're here, maybe we should take a look." "What's it going to hurt?" The mother-in-law smiled. "It costs 1,000, Ashley interjected. Ashley, her mother-in-law turned to her with a sweet smile. "Think about it. 1,000 isn't 6,000. That's not much for you." "Any money is a lot for us," Ashley said coldly. But Dave agreed to help. Her mother-in-law's voice grew sharper. "It's about helping an elderly woman. It's about your appetites, which grow as we go," Ashley replied quietly. Her mother-in-law couldn't believe her ears. First the fridge, then the microwave. What's next? "A stove, a TV?" Richard nudged his wife. "Don't argue. Why shouldn't I? Let your mother know what I think of her methods." "What methods?" Rebecca blushed. "Methods of extracting money. First complaints about working appliances, then sudden breakdowns, and now trying to get another purchase." "How dare you?" shouted the mother-in-law. "How dare you talk to me like that? And how dare you decide how to spend our money?" Ashley didn't back down. The mother-in-law turned to her son. "Do you hear what your wife is saying? She's insulting me." Richard stood there, red with shame and anger. "Ashley, stop immediately," he hissed. "Apologize to Mom." "For what?" Ashley said coldly. "For telling the truth? For being blunt? I'm not rude. I just speak as it is. You're behaving horribly." Richard raised his voice. "Mom just wanted to look at the microwave, and you made a scene. Mom wasn't just looking, she was hinting at buying it. And if I don't stop this now, in a month she'll want something else." "Shut up!" Richard shouted. "Just shut up and don't embarrass me." Ashley looked at her husband, red face, angry eyes, clenched fists. He's defending his mother, defending her again against his wife. "Don't embarrass you," she repeated softly. "Yes, behave yourself, Richard." Ashley stepped right up to him. "And you behave yourself when you spend our shared money without my consent? When you put your mother's whims above our plans? These aren't whims, and Mom is right," Richard growled. You're just greedy. Ashley's last words landed like a slap. Ashley paled. Richard called her greedy. In front of his mother, in front of strangers, he sided with his mother's judgment over his wife. Greedy, Ashley repeated slowly. Understood. She raised her hand and struck her husband sharply across the cheek. The loud smack echoed through the entire store. Richard froze, covering his reddened cheek with his palm. Rebecca gasped and clutched her heart. The nearby sales clerk awkwardly looked away. Ashley, Richard whispered, what are you doing? Exactly what I should have done long ago, Ashley replied calmly. She grabbed her purse, turned, and headed for the exit. At the doorway, she stopped and turned back. Richard, she said loudly and clearly, from now on, any purchases for your mother are made with your own salary, and you can explain to her why your wife will no longer attend family dinners. The door closed behind her. Ashley stepped outside, took out her phone, and called a taxi. Her hands trembled, her heart raced, but inside there was a strange calm. She had done what she should have done long ago. She put a full stop to the question of whose interests mattered more, the wife's or the mother-in-law's. Now Richard could deal with the consequences of his own choice. The fridge was delivered on Sunday morning. Ashley watched from the window as movers carried a large box labeled Bosch into Rebecca's apartment. Richard fussed nearby, explaining things, showing the way. Her mother-in-law stood to the side, looking triumphant. Her husband didn't return home until evening, tired and sullen. So, satisfied? Ashley asked without looking up from her book. Installed, Richard replied shortly. Mom's happy. For $6,000 she should be. Richard went into the bathroom and stayed under the shower for a long time. During dinner, they hardly spoke. The atmosphere in the house was tense, like the calm before a storm. Ashley, Richard said as they were going to bed, Mom wants you to apologize. For what? Ashley asked. For yesterday's scene in the store, for the slap? Ashley put down her phone and looked at her husband. And what did you tell her? That you'd talk to me, Richard? I'm not apologizing to anyone, especially not to your mother. Ashley, Richard began, but it's improper. It's improper to call your wife greedy in front of others. And a slap. That's a natural reaction to rudeness. She wasn't rude, she called me greedy, and you supported her. That's what you should apologize for, Ashley cut in. Richard was silent, then quietly said, All right, maybe I overreacted. I'm sorry. Maybe it was a mistake, Richard, to put your mother's opinion above your wife's in front of others. That's not a small mistake. That's betrayal. Don't dramatize. I'm not dramatizing, Ashley replied calmly. I'm drawing conclusions. From that point on, their family life followed new rules, established by Ashley without discussion. She no longer visited Rebecca, skipped family holidays, and ignored her mother-in-law's phone calls. Mom is inviting us for dinner on Saturday, Richard would say. She's not inviting me. Go alone, Richard. That's not right. It is right and necessary. During the first month, Richard tried to play the peacemaker. He went to his mother alone, then came home and recounted her complaints to his wife. She says you offended her, that she has always treated you well. And you, Richard, Ashley interrupted, I don't want to hear what your mother says, and I don't want you repeating my words to her. I have no relationship with her anymore. But she's family? She's your family? Not mine. Rebecca, initially hoping for a quick reconciliation, gradually realized that Ashley was serious. So the mother-in-law changed tactics. Dave, she would say to her son, maybe it's for the best. Look at your wife, greedy, nasty, disrespectful to elders. Life with her must be hard. Richard would relay these words at home, expecting his wife to be outraged and finally come to reconcile. But Ashley just shrugged. Your mother has a right to her opinion, Ashley. But she says terrible things. Then don't listen and don't repeat them. 2 months after the fridge scandal, Rebecca decided to take decisive action. Dave, she said to her son during another visit, I've thought a lot about your situation and concluded that you need to get a divorce. Richard choked on his tea. What? Divorce Ashley? You see what kind of person she is. A troublemaker, greedy, she hates me. Life with her is nothing but misery. Mom, what are you talking about? We have a normal family. Normal? The wife doesn't visit her mother-in-law, doesn't come to holidays, doesn't even greet me. Is that a normal family? Mom, we had a fight, but it will pass. It won't pass, Dave. I know women like her. She alienates you from your mother, destroys the family. First she'll forbid me, then she'll turn the children against their grandmother. Richard remained silent, stirring sugar into his tea. His mother's words struck a chord within him. Indeed, life had become less peaceful, constant explanations about why Ashley didn't visit, awkwardness at family gatherings where everyone asked about the daughter-in-law. You know what, Dave? Rebecca continued. Yesterday I met Molly, remember the neighbor's daughter? She's become such a beauty and is still unmarried. Works at a bank, earns well, and, most importantly, she's well-mannered and respects her parents. Mom, stop, Richard said wearily. Stop what? I'm just saying, you have a chance to start a new life with a normal woman who understands family values. I already have a wife. Yes, but what a wife. Dave, you're still a young, handsome man. You can find someone better. Richard returned home upset. Mom thinks we should get a divorce, he said, taking off his jacket. Ashley wasn't even surprised. And did you tell her I'm your wife? What do you think? Richard sank onto the couch, rubbing his face with his hands. I don't know, Ashley. Honestly, I don't know. This whole situation is exhausting me. Mom is constantly complaining. Don't you want to talk to her? Ashley asked, sitting across from him. I'm not forbidding you to communicate with your mother. Talk to her as much as you want, but don't drag me into it. But we're a family, and your mother, she's your mother. Separate. That's not how it works, Ashley. Family includes all relatives. It can be. And it will be that way. Or you choose your mother over your wife, then file for divorce. Your choice. Richard looked at his wife. In her eyes there was no anger or resentment, only calm determination. Are you serious? Absolutely. I'm not going to spend my whole life fighting your mother for the rightful woman in your life. Either you understand that, or we part ways. And if I choose you, then we live by my rules. I don't communicate with your mother, I don't visit her. Your relationship with her is your business, but it doesn't concern me, and no more spending on her whims. Richard was silent, then nodded. Okay, let's try. The following weeks proved that Ashley wasn't bluffing. Rebecca called almost every day, trying to get her son to reason with his wife, but for the first time in his life, Richard showed firmness. Mom, Ashley is an adult. I'm not going to force her, but she must respect her elders. Mom, let's not talk about this. Ashley hasn't done anything wrong to me. How is that not wrong? She's alienating you from your mother. She's not alienating me. I visit, I call, I help. What's changed? What's changed is that your wife is nowhere to be seen, and now I can't count on a granddaughter. The last remark was said with particular emphasis. Ashley had just entered the room and heard the end of the conversation. What granddaughter? She asked when Richard hung up. Mom's afraid you'll turn the kids against her. And when will we have children? Ashley? We planned after the apartment. After the apartment, Ashley nodded, meaning she now had to save for 2 extra months. Richard blushed. The topic of the money spent on the fridge was still a sore point. Meanwhile, Rebecca had new problems. The Bosch fridge turned out to be more temperamental than expected. The temperature fluctuated, it made strange noises, and the door wouldn't close properly. "Dave," she complained to her son, "this fridge is wrong." "Maybe it's defective?" "Mom, there's a warranty." "Call a repairman." "I've called twice already." They fiddled with it, seemed to fix it, and a week later, more problems. Listening to these conversations, Ashley felt a quiet satisfaction. Karma was a fair thing. She had coaxed money out of them for an expensive fridge, and now they were getting headaches from maintaining it. 6 months passed. Family life stabilized under the new rules. Richard visited his mother alone, and Ashley focused on her own activities. At home, they avoided discussing the mother-in-law, which benefited their relationship. "You know," Richard said one evening, "I think we're getting along better." "Because I'm not wasting my nerves on your mother," Ashley replied. "And you're not torn between two women? Maybe you were right. Maybe I really shouldn't have been constantly mediating between you two? Maybe not. But, really, Richard, everyone needs boundaries, and families do too." A year later, an event shifted the balance of power in their family triangle. Ashley became pregnant. When the test showed 2 lines, she sat in the bathroom for a long time, considering the consequences. A child is a joy, but it's also a new reason for Rebecca to interfere in their lives. "Really?" Richard exclaimed, thrilled at the news. "Ashley, that's wonderful." "Wonderful," his wife agreed. "But remember our agreement. Your mother will not dictate how I handle the pregnancy or raise the child." Of course, her husband assured her. "Although, well, she will be the grandmother, she'll want to see her granddaughter. If she wants to, then she'll have to learn to communicate with me properly. Without that, she won't have access to the child." Rebecca received the news of her daughter-in-law's pregnancy with mixed feelings. On one hand, a granddaughter. On the other hand, this granddaughter would be the daughter of the hated Ashley. "Dave," she said to her son, "I'm so happy. Finally, I'll have a grandchild. We don't know yet, it's too early." "How's Ashley feeling?" "Any morning sickness?" "Not yet, she's feeling fine." "That's good. Listen, Dave, maybe now she'll come to me?" "Well, since it's my granddaughter, I'd like to help, share some advice and experience." Richard remained silent. He knew that Ashley wouldn't change her stance even for the child. "Mom, Ashley is very independent. She can handle everything herself. But I'm an experienced woman. I raised a son myself. I can give some tips on how to do things. Mom, if Ashley wants advice, she'll ask for it. And if she doesn't want it, Dave, I'll be a grandmother. I have rights to my granddaughter. Your rights exist if you manage to get along with Ashley. Why should I be the one to make peace?" She was rude first, let her apologize first. For the first time in his life, Richard spoke harshly to his mother. "If you want to see your granddaughter, you'll find a way to reconcile with Ashley. If you don't want to, that's your choice, but the decision is yours." Rebecca was taken aback. Her son had never spoken to her in that tone. "Richard, are you serious?" "Absolutely serious. Mom, I'm tired of being the middleman between you. Want a relationship with your granddaughter? Work it out with Ashley yourself." The following months of pregnancy passed quietly. Rebecca tried several times to send advice and offers of help to Ashley through her son, but she received polite refusals. "Please thank your mother, but I'm managing," Ashley would say. "But she wants to help. She wants to help. Let her apologize for her behavior, then we'll talk." A girl, Alice, was born. Small, beautiful, healthy. Richard went crazy, buying gifts, photographing every moment of his daughter's life, while Rebecca stayed home, torn by the desire to see her granddaughter. Richard showed her photos, told her about the girl's first days, but Ashley did not invite her to meet the child. Dave, the mother-in-law, couldn't hold back a month after the birth. I can't take it anymore. I want to see my granddaughter. Mom, come to our home. Ashley will allow it. If you behave properly, she'll allow it. What do you mean, properly? No complaints, no advice, no reminders of old grievances. Just come as a grandmother to see her granddaughter. Rebecca spent 2 days gathering courage, then bought expensive gifts for the baby and asked her son to arrange a meeting. Ashley agreed to receive her mother-in-law at home but warned, one hint of reconciliation or complaints, and she would leave forever. The meeting was tense but peaceful. Rebecca behaved with marked politeness, admired her granddaughter, and gave gifts. Ashley was coldly polite but not rude. "What a beautiful girl," said the mother-in-law, leaning over the crib. "She looks like her father, like my father," Ashley corrected. "He had the same eyes." "Maybe like her grandfather too," Rebecca agreed, swallowing the sting. From that day, a strange peace was established. The mother-in-law visited her granddaughter once a week, brought gifts, cooed over the child. Ashley tolerated these visits, but there was still no real communication between them. 2 years passed. Alice grew up a healthy and cheerful girl. Richard got a promotion at work. His salary rose to $6,000. Ashley returned from maternity leave and got a job closer to home. They became more active in saving for an apartment. Then something happened that no one expected. The Bosch refrigerator broke. "Dave," Rebecca called on Saturday morning, "I have a disaster. The fridge stopped working." "What do you mean, stopped?" "Like this, it won't turn on, no hum, nothing. Completely dead." "Mom, is it still under warranty?" "It expired last month." "Dave, what should I do? Call a repairman?" Richard went to his mother's house and looked at the refrigerator. Indeed, it wasn't working. No sign of life. "Strange," he said. "So expensive, and it only worked for a year." "That's exactly what I'm saying," the mother-in-law protested. "We paid $5,000, and it broke after just a year." The repairman called to the house delivered a grim verdict. "The repair will cost $2,000, and even then, there's no guarantee it will work. Better buy a new one." "$2,000? Rebecca exclaimed. "For what?" "The compressor needs replacing," the repairman explained. "It's an expensive part." When the repairman left, the mother-in-law sat on the couch and began to cry. "Dave, what am I supposed to do now? Where do I get the money for the repair? And if it doesn't work, I'll have to buy a new fridge too." Richard sat next to her, brooding. Their family budget had just accumulated around $3,000, part of the sum spent a year ago on his mother's fridge. He could help with the repair. But then he remembered Ashley's face in that store, her tears when she counted the budget, the slap he, honestly, deserved. "Mom," he said quietly, "I don't have the money." "What do you mean, you don't?" the mother-in-law asked, surprised. "Well, we have a child, big expenses, saving for an apartment. But it's only $2,600. Mom, for us, $2,600 is more than a month's savings. We can't afford that." Rebecca looked at her son in disbelief. A year ago he had bought her a refrigerator without hesitation, and now he refused to help with a repair. "Richard," she said, her tone wounded, "I don't understand. You're my son. Who will help me if not you? Mom, you have money for the repair, you work, you earn a good salary, but I have my own expenses. Everyone has expenses, and I do too, family, child, rent." Her voice turned sharp. "Are you really going to refuse your mother?" "I'm not refusing. I just can't help with money. Can't or won't." Richard looked at his mother. A year ago, he would have taken out the money and bought a new fridge. But now he understood, this story would never end. Today, the fridge, tomorrow, the washing machine, the day after the TV. Mom, he said firmly, I'm sorry you have problems, but they need to be solved with your own money. Rebecca was silent for a long time, then quietly asked, Did Ashley forbid you to help me? Ashley has nothing to do with this. It's my decision. I don't believe you. A year ago, you bought me a fridge without questions, and now you refuse even to pay for the repair. A year ago I was a fool, Richard admitted honestly. I spent your and your wife's savings on my whim. A whim? The mother-in-law boiled. A fridge is a whim? Mom, you had a working fridge. You invented problems just to get a new, expensive one at our expense. I didn't invent anything. You did. And we both know it. Rebecca stood and went to the window. So, I'm nobody to you now, she said, her voice trembling with tears. You're my son, but I'm not supposed to support you at the expense of my family. Fine. The mother-in-law turned to her son. Then you're nobody to me either. And you can take your granddaughter. Don't bring her here again. Mom, don't say nonsense. Not nonsense, but the truth. Since you're not my son, I'm not your mother or your daughter's grandmother. Richard sighed and stood up. As you wish, Mom, he said. It's your choice. He left, and Rebecca was left alone with the broken fridge and her resentment toward her ungrateful son. At home, Ashley listened silently to her husband's story. And how do you feel? She asked. Strange, but relieved, Richard admitted. For the first time in my life, I didn't give in to my mother's manipulations. Do you feel sorry for her? I do, but not enough to spend our money again. She'll fix the fridge herself. She'll manage. She has money. She's just used to saving at our expense. Ashley hugged her husband. I'm proud of you, she said. Finally, you've grown up. Rebecca eventually managed to repair the refrigerator. She found a cheaper repairman. But 6 months later, it broke again, this time completely and irreversibly. On this occasion, the mother-in-law didn't even bother calling her son. She bought herself a new fridge, simple, reliable, for $3,000, and realized that she could have done this from the start without creating family drama. But her relationship with her son remained strained. Richard occasionally visited his mother, called on holidays, and brought his daughter once a month. Ashley didn't mind, as long as she didn't have to participate in these visits. Rebecca remained alone with her grievances and her new refrigerator, which worked perfectly but brought her no joy, because she hadn't received it as a gift from a loving son, she had bought it with her own money. Every time she opened the door, she remembered the beautiful one that had cost so much, worked for only a year, and then broken. She reflected and realized that greed isn't the worst sin. Far worse is losing your family because of your own avarice. But pride would not allow her to reconcile with her daughter-in-law, and her son had learned to say no. Now Rebecca was forced to live independently, buying appliances with her own salary and not counting on help from her children, which, in retrospect, was the right approach from the very beginning.